Hey everyone, welcome to the CareerMetis Podcast. This is your host Nisar Ahmed. This is episode 86 of the podcast, and this episode is a continuation of the personal branding series. If you're joining us for the first time, just a quick summary of what the personal branding series is. What I've done is, if you've looked at our blog, if you looked at our last interviews, you understand that personal branding is crucial right now. Whether you're a job seeker or you're already in a profession or a freelancer, you have to build your personal brand to get found. And what I do in these interviews, I bring in individuals who have actually epitomized that, who have done really well, who have built a strong personal brand for themselves. I mean, this is not a new concept. You probably have read it every day on every magazine, every publication. But here we're going to hear from someone who has actually done it and is continuously doing it. And for today's Personal Branding Expert Series interview, our guest today is Colin Morgan. I'm sure we'll learn a lot from Colin, but he is a very high-level introduction of Colin. He's the VP of Operations and Marketing for the Plan to Profit Group. He's also the producer and host of the Daily Grind podcast. It's a daily interview series. We'll learn more about that as well. Hey, Colin, welcome to the podcast.
Nisar, Saturday morning. I'm here speaking with you. It's an honor to be on your show. Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure is all mine. I'm sure we all have a lot to learn from you. First of all, before we jump into your history, your bio, and some of the amazing things you have done, a question I always love to ask my guests is, where are they calling from?
I am calling from Niagara, Canada.
It's always great when I have a fellow Canadian on the call. As
right.
You and I have spoken before, so I'm based in Toronto, 2 hours away. Yeah, it's always great to talk to a fellow Canadian. When you say Niagara, most people sort of sense what the place is about, but I'm going to put you on the spot here. Could you share with us something about Niagara that a lot of people do not know about?
Oh, that is putting me on the spot. Well, I would say, obviously Niagara Falls is here, so that's out.
Yes.
But, if you like wine and you like to golf, Niagara is the spot. It's got a lot of wineries, a lot of beautiful wine tours you can go on, and it's got a ton of different golf courses, which I love. So, yeah.
Just a quick geography for the people who have not been to the Niagara area. Niagara Falls, of course, is a world-famous natural beauty. I mean, almost everyone in the world knows about Niagara Falls. Niagara-on-the-Lake is another town which is very close. It is known for its beautiful landscape, a lot of bed and breakfast, wineries, a beautiful side of nature in Southern Ontario. So
gorgeous.
Yeah, it is. And it's amazing in the summer. And I don't know how many times I've been in Niagara Falls, but Niagara-on-the-Lake is also beautiful.
Yeah. You know what? I think that I like Niagara-on-the-Lake personally better. I think once you see Niagara Falls, You've seen it. So I enjoy going to Niagara-on-the-Lake more.
That is so true, because once you're at Niagara Falls, I mean, you've seen the falls.
Yeah.
Right. And what else is you've seen it. First time it's awe-inspiring. Then after that, it gets, law of diminishing returns. But there's so many things to do at Niagara Falls. Niagara-on-the-Lake.
Yeah. Beautiful city. That's for sure.
All right. That's thanks for sharing that. I hope our audience, if they listen to this, they are in the area, I would encourage them to check it out. But I'd love to learn more about you so the audience can know a little bit more about you. So I've given a very high-level overview, but maybe you can give us an overview of what do you do, how you got started, things like that.
Sure, yeah. So I think back about 6-7 years ago, I finished university, or my 2 years in university, and I tried to play professional golf. I did so for about 2-3 years, and then I came to a point where I realized that I wasn't good enough. I wasn't going to be on the PGA Tour. And I really worked my whole life at that. Like that, my whole life was driven around sports and specifically golf. So kind of when I had that realization that I had to do something different, it was a difficult time for me. I was lost. I tried a lot of things when I came home. I took jobs, bartending. I tried my hand in the hotel business. I almost opened a used car dealership. I tried opening an e-commerce store. I sold international real estate where I was making cold calls, about 300 to 350 cold calls a day. And I was just trying to find something that I was good at. But one thing that I did learn from all of that is just by doing, I learned about what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. And that led me into kind of having a conversation with my father, Paul. Paul is the president and CEO here and founder of Plan to Profit, where he was writing business plans for people. So people needed funding, they needed help with direction, growth strategies. People would call Paul, and he would put together a financial plan and a written plan if needed, if they were going to a bank or investor. So I just started working with him, a very small way. I started working with him, and I started doing some writing for business plans. And during that time, I was always reading and educating myself and watching videos and trying to learn marketing, because I knew that in this day and age, in the digital world, going to university, getting a job, getting a pension, that was over. I had to kind of create something new for myself. So I kind of piggyback off my father. I learned a lot. He gave me the opportunity to learn a lot. And that led me into about a year ago doing what I am now within the company. And that's mostly marketing and sales and business development. And that's really what I am passionate about, is marketing side of things and storytelling and sales and helping businesses that are starting out succeed. Because I'm sure you see it a lot, Nassar, where people have an idea, right? They have a big idea, but it's very difficult to take that idea and not only start a business, but make it profitable so it's operational for years to come. And that's what Paul and I have really done well here, is we really focus on customer success. When someone comes to us with an idea, we work with them from that idea stage all the way up until they're open, because we realize that even if someone's looking for a business plan is just a piece of paper, and people are really confused about it. They think it's 50 pages when really it's a flowing plan that over time you can actually use going forward to set new targets and make sure that you're on task. And then that led me into the podcasting game. And one day I came across Entrepreneur on Fire and John Lee Dumas, and I reached out to him and I said, "This is who I am. I would love to be on your show," just kind of like a shot in the dark. And he said, "Yeah, sure." And from that one podcast, our business, generated an extra $10,000 on a 20-minute interview. And for me, that was eye-opening. And I saw what he was doing, and I'm like, I'm going to kind of take what he's doing. I'm going to make it my own, and I'm going to start a podcast myself. And that's what I did. I started the Daily Grind podcast. I run it 5 days a week, and I interview really successful people like Nassar. I had Neil Patel on the show. I just interviewed Seth Godin, and it's been not only a way to provide value for customers and people out there who don't know who I am, but it's done wonders for me in terms of personal development, branding, like we're going to speak about here today, and just development of myself as a person. So that's kind of my backstory. That's where I led today. And I'm just a person now where all I'm trying to do every day is just get one step ahead on that success ladder of life. Just do one thing every day to improve myself, because I understand those little small incremental steps are going to lead to those bigger goals, which I'm sure all of you have big goals, but it's those small steps that lead to those.
Wow. During your introduction, Colin, you have given us a few amazing tidbits, and I'm going to expand on a few of them.
Sure.
You talked about your company helping businesses with business plan and why that is important, how much of an impact that has. You talked about podcasting, and you also talked about small steps. So I'll come to each one of those topics one by one. But I really like the way you ended. Like right today, you want to make sure that each day you're a better person, your company's a better by one step than the day before. You spoke a little bit about goal setting, whether it is a career, whether you're trying to get your first job, or you're launching a company, or you're trying to take your company to the next level. People do sometimes get bogged down by goal setting, because sometimes they get overwhelmed. I would love for you to expand on the whole concept of small steps. I mean, I know the audience will benefit from this.
Sure. So let's talk about, like, say someone who's trying to find a job, like trying to find their ideal job. I mean, we all want to work for Elon Musk or Bill Gates, right? Like, you have that dream job in mind, but early on, it's very difficult to get that. And when you set those goals for yourself, sometimes, even though they may be attainable in the long run, in the short term, they're not attainable. So when you're looking for a job, like especially early on, all I would say is just try to build your skill. So if you're trying to work for X, then go ahead and work for some smaller companies that are going to build your skill up. And that doesn't stop you from going out and searching your dream job. I mean, nowadays with technology, you don't have to hand in a resume, right? Like you don't have to go and write a resume out and hand it in. There's so many different things that you can do. I know people who grab their cell phone, they snap a 45-second video of themselves saying, hey, this is Colin Morgan. I am a marketing and sales expert. This is what I've done in the past. Here's how I can help your company. I would love to sit down with you and see if me being a part of your company would be a good fit. That 45-second or 15-second video, I swear to God, will give you get you more interviews than any resume out there, because people are looking for people nowadays. Even though some people are still, they look at a resume, they're looking at a resume because that's all they got, right? Like I'm sure you know that, Nassar. Like you're looking to hire, you have 15 resumes, that's all you're looking at. But if someone were to come across the desk and do something different and be personable and take initiative, like they're at the top of the list. Regardless if you hire them or not, you're at least going to get an interview. So what I would say is, like, you're looking for a job. All you have to do is every single day, do something that's going to improve your skill to get you to a point where you feel comfortable enough to do that video. You feel comfortable enough to reach out to that CEO or boss. So things like reading and things like executing, because I think a lot of people read, like a lot of people read a book, but then that's it. Like I am more along the lines of read a paragraph, take something from that paragraph and start implementing that. And if you do that, then you're going to start seeing the results that you want to see.
Yeah, that is so true, right? Because the old axiom is knowledge is power, but nowadays knowledge is power when it is applied properly.
Yes.
I can read 5 books, like classic example, like you and I, we run podcasts, we could read and watch videos. I think what you have done is you went on one interview as a guest, and the next thing you know, you started your own podcast.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a quick shout out to your podcast, doing 5 episodes a week, and I've heard some of your interviews. That's a huge feat, but you got started somewhere, and as you started doing more and more, you became better. And that's where a lot of people get hung up. They might think of, okay, I want to be like Colin, I want to do something like this, but I don't know if I can get 5 people a week. But that's not the way to look at it, right? You have to think about getting started.
Yeah, it's just doing the first one. And like anyone listening, like my first podcast, like it sucked. The first time I did a podcast, it was bad. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I was sitting down, I was fumbling over my words. I had no idea what I was doing. But once you do them, then you get better. And it's just like you said, right? It's the task of getting 5 guests a week is huge, but you have to get the first guest. And once you get the first guest, then worry about number 2, then worry about number 3. Just do it one step at a time. And then all of a sudden, like before I recorded my first episode, I had 35 yeses from people who wanted to be on my show that hadn't even started yet. And that's when I knew I kind of had something.
That's amazing. So the model of what you just discussed is small steps every day or consistently will take you to the places that you sometimes would not have imagined. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to what you do as a business, because you mentioned business plan. I know for anyone, regardless of what age group, I'm sure you've heard what a business plan is, why it is important, and how you're increasing your chance of success. What are your thoughts on applying that to an individual? So businesses, they're an entity, they have a business plan. What about individuals, like someone who wants to start their career or start a company or start a freelancing career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think first things first, like when you hear the word business plan, I was the same way. There's a negative sort of connotation towards it. No one wants to write a business plan, right? Like they're long-winded, filled with information. You're going to use it once. That's what we don't do. We create sort of modern business plans that are very short, concise, to the point. And if you're starting out as a freelancer or as an individual, the sort of metaphor that I would equate that to is if I'm here in Niagara and I'm trying to drive to Toronto where Nassar is, and I've never been there before, the first thing that I do is I go on my phone and I type in Nassar's address and a GPS pops up, right? It gives me the fastest route to get there. Now, there may be an accident that comes my way. There may be a roadblock. There may be a toll booth, but I know how to get to Nassar's address. And if I hit a roadblock, I take a detour, it's going to get me back on track. So that's the way we look at a business plan. Is if you've never been somewhere before, if you're trying to start a business and you have no idea what it's going to take to become profitable, putting together a simple, concise, flowing plan for yourself is going to make you avoid a ton of mistakes. If you're looking for a location, instead of going and sourcing a location before you understand what you can afford, like that's going to put you in the hole for a lot of months. So a plan just gets you to a point where when you're open for the first day, you're profitable, you understand how to make money, you understand your expenses, and you understand the steps that you're going to have to take in order to become successful.
That's amazing. So you start off by knowing where you want to go. And the benefit of that planning is you are able to know, you're able to do a planning in advance. So you're trying to avoid all the mistakes. It also saves you time in the long run because if
Tons of time.
Yeah. So like going back to the Niagara to Toronto examples, right? If you have never looked at the map and you kept driving south, then you realize you're going in the wrong direction. Then you have to do course correction. You might reach Toronto, but you may not reach in 2 hours. It might take you 20 hours or 2 days. And that's I love that analogy.
Yeah. And I mean, you know what? You'll eventually, like I always tell people, you'll eventually get to where you want to be. Yes. But how many mistakes and how much money is that going to take you to get there? It's like having a coach, right? If someone can help you accelerate the process even by a day, it's worth it because it's worth not making those mistakes over and over and over again.
That is so true. And just before we move on, I wanted to apply the same analogy of a business plan to an individual. Let's say you just recently graduated or you are trying to get your next job. You're trying to switch career into something else. The first and foremost thing, just to go back to Colin's analogy, is to understand where you want to go and write and jot down the ideas, how you can get there. And then once you get started on that, you will have a higher chance of success than someone who just has a pipe dream or a goal.
Exactly. And then reach out to people too. Like there's a lot of people who have been exactly in your situation. And one thing that I've learned doing 5-day-a-week podcasts, interviewing people is like people are open to helping you. They want to help you. They understand that they were in the same position as you. And if they can help you, even like I said, even by a minute or a day or an hour, they will.
So let me ask you this, because I know I promised at the beginning I'll get back to the podcast. You just mentioned this right now. How has your podcast changed your career and your life?
Well, I think the biggest obstacle and struggle that a business has or that an entrepreneur has or a freelancer has is obscurity. It's people not knowing who you are and what you do. So for me, what a podcast has done is sort of put me at the forefront. So when someone goes on a website or when someone Googles my name, I'm viewed as an authority figure, even though I'm not, okay? I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I am not the most famous person in the world. I don't make the most amount of money. But what it does is it puts you in that category. So when you speak to someone like Seth Godin, people think that, wow, he must be in touch with Seth Godin. He must be at that level. That's what people perceive that as. So for me, podcasting has taken me out of obscurity. It's put me more at the forefront, and it's allowed me to do different things. Like our services, say, for an example, before we started podcasting, were around, say, $2,500. Now they're around $5,000. And the only way we were able to do that is now when people contact us, they understand who we are, who I am, and what we can do for them. And that's the biggest thing. People don't buy what you do. They buy who you are.
Wow. People don't buy what you do. People buy who you are. That's actually very profound. And you did provide some examples in the between, and you gave some specific examples how that impacted your business. But what I'm hearing is it's basically reverse engineering, right? You mentioned at the beginning, let's say you're trying to, do something new, find a new career.
Yeah.
Initially, you're putting yourself out there, you're sending a resume. But if you switch the gears and if you have built a brand for yourself, there's a good chance people would come to you. And even if you're reaching out, you are putting yourself ahead of the pack.
Exactly. I had someone on my show, I think his name was Morgan. I forget his last name. Funny enough, his first name's Morgan. And he started a kind of like a sales series on YouTube. And he had just an average job. He was just a sales rep. And then from that sales series, he got picked up by one of the top sales companies in the world. And now he's working for them. And I promise you, the only way he did that was from his sales series that he does on YouTube. And it's just content. Everyone can have a voice nowadays. And it's whether you're willing to put in that time, and it's whether you're willing to overcome that fear of rejection and that fear of embarrassment, of what you think is embarrassment. If you can put that behind you, you're going to see so much success going forward.
That is so true. Now, how was it nerve-wracking when you first did it? Like in terms of your comfort zone?
I'll give you a funny story here, Nasad. So my first, I would say 25 recordings. Okay. I was so nervous. I sat down in front of my mic. I had no shirt on. I had a towel because I was sweating so much.
Wow.
Okay. Like for me, it was something completely foreign. I had no idea what I was doing. And I'm still young, but like, it's something where I was like, how am I speaking with John Lee Dumas? Why does he want to speak with me? I'm nervous. I'm trying to prep. Like, it sucked for a little bit, but over time you start to get more comfortable. And now I'm sitting here in a robe drinking a coffee. So things have changed.
Yeah, that is so true. So the story here, the moral of the story is, it is going to be nerve-wracking, but once you do it, you get to a point where you probably might even enjoy it and you don't feel the nerves, but the impact on your career, on your business, on your life is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was going to ask you the question. I think you touched on an example of an individual who started a sales series. Would you recommend that? I think podcasting is the ultimate branding and networking tool. I believe that, but I want to hear from you. If someone listening to this, they are not sure they have something to talk about, or they don't consider themselves an expert, would you still recommend them to get into podcasting?
Sure. I mean, even if you don't have an audience, like one thing that I've learned is when you sit behind a mic and you just talk, you get better at speaking. Like you get better at business. You understand that I'm struggling in these areas. I need to get more well-versed. I need to start reading more because my vocabulary isn't where it needs to be. So it's the same thing with podcasting or blogging. Like Seth Godin, he says you should blog every day. And it's not for people to read, it's for you. And when you write, you get better and you start to become more profound and understand things more and understand how to improve yourself. So, I mean, for anyone listening, like maybe starting a 5-day-a-week podcast or doing something Nassar's doing with the CareerMetis Podcast, maybe that's not for you, but I'm telling you, just sit even in front of your phone and just record yourself. You're going to get better at whatever it is that you're doing. So I don't know if that answers your questions as much. I mean, in terms of being a podcaster, maybe not for everyone, but I'm sure speaking in front of a camera or a microphone is going to help you in whatever you do.
Yeah, that is amazing. So the reason I asked that question is initially when someone listens to this, they think, okay, this is not for me. But I have heard I've heard stories of individuals who, like there was a story of a woman who actually wrote a blog post, created a blog, wrote a blog post, and basically wrote how she would improve Airbnb if she worked there. And then once she wrote it, I'll try to find the story and reference this when this podcast gets live. But then she sends a tweet out to Brian Chesky, the founder, and then the next thing you know, she was called in for an interview. She has a job. So those are the different things you can do. All of a sudden, you're no longer you're not lost in the sea of candidates. You're all of a sudden like you're different. You're memorable.
Exactly. Like anything that you do anything you do that's going to step outside of the box and show, because CEOs, like I said, they're not looking for a resume. They're not looking that you have this certain type of degree. They're looking for motivated people who want to improve. Like that's what they're looking for nowadays.
Okay. So another question I wanted to ask you is, I mean, you're constantly working on your brand. You build a great foundational system, the podcast. How do you keep yourself going when you hit a point where anything you do, you get a point where it gets routine? How do you keep going?
I think it's having a vision in place. And I think that goes back to a bit of goal setting, but it's not like I'm setting a goal for myself that's unattainable. Like my goal is just to get better every single day and provide a ton of value to people. And for me, like, I just enjoy it. Like, maybe that's not for everyone. Maybe doing a couple posts on social media and doing those things isn't for everyone. But for me, I just want to provide value to people. I'm not looking to get millions of people who follow me. I'm looking to get 100 people who really like what I do. And that's my initial goal. And now it's 1,000 and then it's 10,000. So it's just kind of building on what I have started. And I understand that right now, I don't have as many followers as someone who is more successful, but they've been doing it longer. Like, they've been in the same position that I'm in. They're in the same position that you've been in, Nassar. So it's just about every single day doing something, providing value to what I believe people want to hear, not what I think is right.
No, that is so true. So it's providing them consistent value that keeps you going, right?
Yeah.
You take yourself out of the equation, and no matter how big or small your audience is, there are people out there waiting to hear your message. So you consistently go, and that could apply to podcasts, blogs. You could go to YouTube videos. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Any type of content out there that you could just provide for yourself. And even if one person reads it, it's still, like I said, it's still going to help you, which is most important.
Perfect. So now I would like to ask you some suggestions for the audience. So you gave a lot of ideas. You showed your example. If someone listening to this, and let's say they are a total beginner, what do you recommend? Where do you recommend they start? Like, they want to build a brand. They want to be found. What are some of the things you recommend for them?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just starting. So you have to understand, like, what type of brand. That's something that you want to think about. And that's something that I didn't do great at the beginning, was like, what message are you trying to share with people? Once you understand what message you're trying to share, then it becomes a little bit easier. So when I say, like, what message, depends on if you want likes, like if you want to post stuff on social media for likes and follows in terms of fancy cars and good looking people and people in bikinis, or if you want to be someone who is providing more value to people, which I think in the long run is going to be more successful than the first. So some things that you can do is just posting on social media, doing a blog, reaching out to people. You have to start somewhere, but anything that you can do consistently, whether it be one post a day or one post a week, as long as you stay consistent with it, things will start to grow. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but it's kind of understanding what message you want to share and then just starting something.
I really like that, because sometimes you ask, let's say, an expert, and they all say, you should do this, right? Or like someone asked me, you're right. Like, not everybody should do everything, or like not everybody should podcast. Not everybody should be a YouTuber. They have to find, first of all, where they need to reach and where their audience is. Start a niche. But the most important thing is doing something consistently, if possible, every day.
Yeah, exactly. Love it.
Okay, that's amazing. So there's a lot of amazing ideas you have shared throughout the interview. We are coming to the close here, Colin. And before we wrap up, any last words, any last piece of advice you would like to give the audience?
For anyone out there who is thinking about starting something, or who wants to get out of a current position that you're in, or is looking for a job, don't let fear hold you back. Like, don't let the fear of, what if this doesn't work? Or I'm going to do this, and what if, my friends laugh at me? What if my family thinks that what I'm doing is wrong? All of those negative thoughts and noise in your head is just you. All you have to do is get up, take one small step every single day to reach your goal. And don't be fearful. Don't let what other people think hold you back from doing what you really want to do. And I think that that's a problem around in the world today, especially in the social media age that we live in, is that we don't think we're good enough, or we don't think we drive a nice enough car, have nice enough clothes. Like, be happy with who you are and don't let fear hold you back.
That's an amazing wrap up, amazing piece of advice. Of course, I think that is universal and that applies for everyone. So I'm glad you shared that. After listening to this, Colin, if people wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I'll provide you with all my social media links. You can visit dailygrindpodcast.com. If you're in business or you're looking to start a business, visit plan2profit.ca. Send us an email. Let us know that you listen to the CareerMetis podcast. We'll give you 15 to 30 minutes of our time to help you. And if there's a fit and we think that we can provide you with some value, we'll see what we can do for you. But just visit the site, learn more about us, follow me on social media. And if you need any help, we'd be happy to give you 15 to 30 minutes to see how we'd be able to help you.
That's amazing. Thanks for that offer as well. Colin, it was a pleasure. You shared amazing pieces of wisdom throughout the episode. I'm sure the audience also found it very, very valuable.
Nisar, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really love what you're doing here with the CareerMetis podcast and your blog. You're providing a ton of value to people, and I want to thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Colin. Thanks, folks, for listening to yet another episode of the CareerMetis podcast. I have written a brief summary of the interview with the resources that Colin has provided, and you can find it as a blog post on CareerMetis.com, SoundCloud, and YouTube. If you liked what you heard, feel free to subscribe to the CareerMetis podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. And for more content, ideas, resources, go to CareerMetis.com. If you really enjoyed this episode and also learned something new, feel free to post a comment and review. Until next time, this is Nisar Ahmed, your host for the CareerMetis podcast. Thank you.